Hello, I'm Teddy, and I'm here with Deck Tech. This is Endphase, and I'll be doing my deck tech of Lancer Frogs, which is a tribute kind of frog deck like Monarchs, but not using all of the Monarchs. It's fun, it has a lot of grave play, so if they're running something like Dimensional Fissure or Macros Cosmos, you're kind of in a land of hurt, but you can still win. I pulled out a win with it, it's just a lot harder to play with. Alright, so the first monster we'll have is Swap Frog here. And Swap Frog is the go button for the deck. He's the big tool. You can discard a water monster to special summon him. And when he is summoned, you can send one level 2 or lower water monster from the deck to the graveyard. So that's any frog in the rest of the deck. So you can send Treeborns or Ronan Totens, which can be summoned from the deck. He also has a second ability, which is once per turn you can bounce one monster you control to your hand. Then you can normal summon another frog, except Swap Frog or Frog the Jam, because Frog the Jam is not actually a frog, which is a pain in the ass. Not really. Nobody would want to run him. Next we have Ronan Toten, which is who you're usually sending with Swap Frog. His name is treated as Des Frog while face up on the field, but for this deck that doesn't really matter. You can remove from play one frog monster in your graveyard to special summon him to the field. He can't be used as synchro material, but that is his only drawback, so you can tribute him all you would like. The other target for Swap Frog will be this Treeborn Frog, which is Treeborn Frog during your standby phase. If you don't have any back row, you can summon him. I'm pretty sure you all know him. He's kind of a dick to all the other decks, but that's okay. Cards that will be banished from your graveyard are Dupe Frog, whose name is also treated as Des Frog on the field. If he's face up, your opponent cannot select another attack target except this card as an attack target. And when he's sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add a frog from deck to hand. The other frog you'll be banishing with Ronan Toten is Poison Draw Frog. So when he is sent from the field to the graveyard, except when attacked face down, you can draw a card from your deck. The reason you'll be banishing this guys with Ronan Toten will be explained in a little bit, but to get them to the graveyard is the same tooling with Swap Frog, which you'll be bouncing with him a lot. Another frog for the deck is FlipFlop Frog. He doesn't actually have much play with the other frogs besides being alongside of them, but he's a great bounce and a good spot removal. He's a decent shield, and if you have multiple frogs on the field, you're just bouncing a lot of stuff. Next we have a Maxi, which is just for the draw power because frogs themselves don't actually have too much draw power, and the biggest down is you'll run out of hand. Next is the Lancer part of Lancer Frogs, is Sea Lancer. He's a 1 tribute summon Beast Warrior. You can target any number of your banished fish, sea serpent, aqua type, that perfect trio there, and equip them to him. As long as he's equipped with them, he gains an 1,000 attack point boost. And he can't be destroyed, and you can replace one of the equipments for his destruction, which is why you'll be banishing the poison and the dupe, because when you use his effect, you can, when they're sent from here as a replacement, you actually get their proc of adding a frog and drawing a card. So Poison Draw Frog and Dupe will be adding cards to your hand in a constant rate, which is good, and you'll reload your graveyard with frogs for Ronan Toten for later tributes. We do run Monarchs in this deck. I run one Ryza, which is the bounce to the top of the deck. It's kind of it's better than back to hand, and it sets them back a turn, which is helpful in most cases. And where that isn't helpful, we have Chaos the Shadow Monarch, which is a banish when he's tribute summoned. And if you banish a dark monster, you flick 1,000 damage to your opponent, which is good for anti-meta, and otherwise it's just a flat banish with no damage. Next we will be running 2 Light and Darkness Dragons, which will shut down your deck, unfortunately. But all of your effect procs are optional with the deck. You don't actually have any forced things that need to go through every turn, which means you can sit and just plus cards to your hand, install at your opponent, and swing in for damage while he's here. He'll be hurting your opponent a lot more than you, and he's way good to play. And last but not least, we have an Obelisk Tormentor for the monsters. Obelisk is, well, Obelisk, you know who he is, but he's good with frogs because we have all the tribute power in the world with them, and he's won me quite a few duels just himself. Next, we'll be moving on to spells here. We have a Dark Hole, which is a Dark Hole Nothing needs to be said about it. We have a Shard of Greed, which I have for draw power. You can replace this shard with a third poison draw, but I kind of like running the shard because I end up stalling out for a few turns anyways, and sitting there with it is a lot better stall than sitting there with a poison draw frog. I run 3 Fish and Kicks, which is if you have 3 banished of the trio, which is the Fish, Sea Serpent, Aqua, you can banish a card on the field, and it doesn't have to be your opponent's side, it can be your side. You can get rid of anything on the field too, back row or monsters. Next we have Salvages. Salvage is to get really back the Swap Frog from your graveyard, so you can use this effect again to send more Frog to the graveyard, because you need them there. I run 3 copies of Creature Swap, because frogs themselves are no good battle-wise. The frogs themselves, they have like 100, 200, maybe 1,000 attack. So if you creature swap with them, my favorite one is Poison Draw Frog, because you get the proc when they are sent to the graveyard for their abilities, yet again. So you'll get the draw off a Poison Draw Frog and all that. I run 3 MSTs because mine is updated for the new September 2013 ban list, so Heavy Storm is not an option. Otherwise, I would run one less Mystical Space Typhoon and 1 more Heavy Storm. And so the last spell we have is a Surface. I kind of run 2, but I haven't been able to get my hands on a second one. It's really nice, especially for frogs, because it's any frog from the graveyard to the field, because it's a level 3 or lower of the trio. It's in face-up defense position too, so you don't have to worry about taking overrun damage. And next are the traps, which are limited because of the Treeborn Frog, which is a Call of the Haunted. Because Monster Reborn is taken out, Call of the Haunted is pretty much the best you can do at the moment for frogs. I also have a Compulsory Evacuation Device, which I used to run 3 copies, but because of the September ban list, yet again, you can't be bouncing things all the time. But if you're playing not with the ban list, run 3 of them because they're wonderful. And I also run a Torrential Tribute to clear out the field, because who needs a field when you have frogs? You actually want them in the graveyard anyways, so they're better off to you there. It's, yet again, it does more harm to your opponent than you, even though it will set you back a bit. For the extra, we run 3 Gotcha Gotcha Gentetsus, because they're good shields and they're buffs for that extra point of damage you need to swing over. I run 2 Daigusto Phoenixes, which are for when your opponent's monsters are cleared out with all your tribute summoning. You can Ronan back twice, get a Phoenix, send a Ronan, and the Phoenix can swing in for a solid 3,000, which is wonderful damage. You can also run a 3rd Phoenix in the deck. I just don't have one. I run 2 Dark Mists. I wish I would be running 3 because he's probably the greatest fighter in the deck, but yet again, I just don't have him. Adreus, Keeper of Armageddon, because just in case the Monarchs can Ixies up. It's happened once or twice, and it's because you can just fill up the extra deck here with cards that are ifs, because there isn't too many level 2 ranks, rank 2 Ixies. And then I also run a Volcasaurus for the exact same reason, just in case. Other than that, that's the entire Lancer Frog build. It's really fun. It intrigues a lot of table play. It takes a bit of learning. It has a bit of a learning curve, but once you get it down, it works pretty much perfectly. I'm Teddy, and this has been an Endphase Deck Tech.